Welcome to Live Action Star Wars. I'm Ralph.
I'm James.
And today we're talking about Star Wars.
Star Wars. It's a new movie. I think it just came out recently. I've not
I
seen it yet. Like, this was my first time, so.
I watched it the full on. It's just called Star Wars version. No A New Hope.
Oh, did you pop
No
in one of your
episode.
VHS?
No, because the VHS all say A New Hope.
Okay.
This was they in like 99 or 2001 or something. They released like a 2-disc Star Wars set that had like special edition, but also the bare bones.
That's awesome.
But it's still like a really, really shitty copy. Like it's real blurry, but it feels different.
I can imagine. Like, I was thinking about this when I was watching it last night, and I don't remember the last time I watched Unspecialized. I think it was when so over here we had like a not special edition version of the DVDs released in, I want to say, like 2003, 2004. They just did all three individually. You couldn't buy them as a box set. It was the same time that they released the Ewok movies on that 2-pack.
It was around that time.
And they released those, and I think I watched it once then, and I own them somewhere. They're in a box in my loft. But I don't think I've watched them that way since, because it wasn't that long after that like the Blu-ray box set came out with all of them, which was, specialized and then changed again. But it was
upgrades.
The Jabba upgrades, the other tweaks and changes, everything pre-McClunky, basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was watching through because I watched the Disney Plus version last night.
Okay.
And because I've like you, I own them digitally as well with a nice 4K ones. But I was like, I'm watching it at work. I don't need to like put it on my nice 4K TV or anything like that. I'll just stream the Disney Plus version, whatever. It's the easiest to access. And it was one of those things I was like, I mean, McClunky's obvious, but I think there's some other subtle, like, little tweaks and changes that I hadn't really noticed before. And I don't know if it's just me really trying to pay attention to background stuff this time round to make some notes, or if it's a case of like that are more than just McClunky tweets.
Even watching the blurry ass version that I was watching, I still noticed, like, in the Death Star there's a blue R3 unit. That thing looked cool, and it made me want that.
There's so many odd things that I'm like, I must have seen this and just never consciously thought about it.
My whole thing is it made me almost like not give a shit about any other Star Wars, even Empire.
Yeah,
I was like, this is it. This is the one.
If
everything since this is all like copy and paste.
If this movie hadn't been a commercial success and it spawned the franchise that we love and are still talking about 40 odd years later, like, this movie would have found a niche market and it would have been still talked about to this day. I have no doubt about it, because it's perfect. It's as close to a perfect movie as you can get, I think.
It is. And as much as I love all the Star Wars movies, all of them.
Yeah, we've said it a million times. We love all the Star Wars movies.
This movie's perfect. And I've now decided it's better than Empire.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been Empire's the best one. This is my favorite. This is the best one because it started from scratch. I'm looking at this and I'm looking at every single edit, and I'm watching R2 walk through the desert or roll through the desert in the canyon with the Jawas. And every single edit, I'm like, this adds atmosphere. This is amazing. And then you go watch The Lion King, and Jon Favreau did like a shot for shot remake of that scene with Simba going through the valley with the hyenas. And I'm just like, this is it. Like, this is how it started. It's oh my God.
It is like everything that has become a trope in the 40 years since. It's like almost all of them could be traced back to this point. It's Genesis.
And then I was thinking about it, because here's the thing. The year before this was Logan's Run. Okay, Logan's Run is a great movie, but if you look at Logan's Run, it's no, the story and everything about Logan's Run is great.
Yeah,
It's a
I'll agree
really
with that.
compelling story.
Mhm.
Visually, it's a big hot steaming pile
It's a
of
turd.
1976.
Oh yeah.
And to be in that mindset where you're like, okay, this is the height of sci-fi, is Logan's Run.
Mm.
And then to be exposed to this, like, I mean,
It's
I
unlike
get it.
anything else.
Like I understand like the British film crew making this thing and just being like, there's a guy in a giant dog suit. There's plastic robots.
Yeah.
There's a, you know, it's they're
But you
them
look.
spending all the time trying to get the lightsabers to work. And it's like it is you every single frame of this movie is completely bizarre
Yeah.
and weird.
Mm.
And having Alec Guinness in the middle of the desert with some kid and two plastic robots,
Yeah.
you're
Spouting off
like,
nonsense.
this. I totally understand why the studio and everybody was like on his breathing down his neck and why he was miserable the whole time. But like, I'm like, this is so perfect. It's perfect. It's great. It's a perfect movie.
Yeah, it is. I've always maintained that like the movies that I consider perfect, like Star Wars as a franchise, I've always had a hard time like splitting them apart and saying like Star Wars is my favorite movie because it's like it's above and beyond. So when people ask me what my favorite movie is, my go-to answer is Dazed and Confused, which isn't a perfect movie, but I love it. It's my favorite movie. But like as opposed to perfect movies, I've always sort of said, well, Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect movie. Not my favorite Indiana Jones movie, but a perfect movie. The best one
Really?
of them. Yeah, I love Last Crusade. Last Crusade's my personal favorite. But Raiders is the better movie. I don't think I've ever argued that point. Jaws and Jurassic Park, like the only good Jurassic Park, and the only good Jaws. But like, and it's like, oh wow, Spielberg hit it out of the park with those three, like, and it's amazing. But this is up there, like this is up there or above all three of those for me.
The thing is, for me, watching this movie, anything that doesn't feel, or anything that feels sort of cheap, like some of the sets, some of the props, anything like that, it's mostly Death Star sets.
Yeah.
Anytime it gets close to like the consoles, like Luke's X-Wing console, when he's, you know, turning off his target.
Yeah. It's just a bit sparse, computer. I think.
Yeah. And I'm like, if he just had like $5 million more,
yeah,
it could look like Force Awakens level sets.
There you go.
But it, like the compositions, I love that the camera barely moves. I'm a huge fan. Like, I'm a big fan of Wes Anderson. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like is shot compositions. I don't like a lot of camera moves.
It's the Neil Miller One Perfect Shot sort of situation where it's like you can take a frame, any frame, and it is a still. Like, it doesn't need to move. Like, yeah.
And that's what I like about this, because it kind of mimics those Ralph McQuarrie paintings, and which I love, but it doesn't have quite that epic scope of the Ralph McQuarrie paintings. So, but it's just like, oh my, if the budget was there, like just a little bit more for, because the I feel it's just the Death Star sets are so flat, but I mean, you could fit that in story wise, like, because they're so cold and they're so like manufactured that that's fine. But some of the stuff kind of looks like wood, painted wood.
But it just amazes me that you mentioned like the British crew sort of just going, this guy's off his rocker sort of thing, like he doesn't know what he's doing. But then you look at what the British crews were producing at that time and for the next 35 years. Like, I mean, like, it's always looked cheap over here. Everything has looked cheap. Like, people can love Doctor Who. I've never liked it, but like, people can love that, and that's fine. That's great. And they can like it for its kitschiness, the old stuff, but it's always looked cheap. Whereas, as you said, for the majority of this movie, it doesn't look cheap. And I was thinking about it, like those establishing shots of Yavin, just as they're arriving, and you see them just outside the temple and stuff like that. They didn't. I don't think they flew the cast out there or anything like that. But they got plate shots of Guatemala for that stuff, and it's like,
right,
for 2 shots, you didn't you don't need to do that. You can replicate that like in many other places, but that's the thing. Like it's that level of artistry that we went into it. It's like, no, those are the sorts of things that we need. Let's just go and shoot some shots there, send a small crew down, and then we can composite, we can work with it, use the technology that we're developing from scratch to make this feel grander than it really is.
Yeah, but I feel like so like the Tantive blockade runner, the sets on that look great.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling George sort of knew this is where the story begins. It needs to look good.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the better looking sets. I love that. I love that ship so much.
It's so good.
It's like my number 3 favorite ship in Star Wars.
And I think for me it's the ship with the crew, with those rebel fighters and everything, that it all works together.
Yeah. And then they always talk about how like the Krayt Dragon is like one of the first sort of weird things you see outside of the spaceship. We've seen spaceships before in 2001. The blockade runner kind of has a 2001 feel to it. You come down to the desert, which is for sci-fi isn't really something
people
we've seen
people
in
had
film.
people had been reading Dune at that point already, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, so,
and like there's Planet of the Apes and stuff.
Yeah, desert
but to
sci-fi
see a robot walking around, is unique. And then to see that dragon just laying there, it's like, oh, what's that?
But yeah, you don't call attention to it. It's just something that exists.
But the movie, what's great about this movie, and you get so much of this stuff, this production value of this very real bizarre desert, and then you just stick an igloo in the middle of it, and boom, there you have it. It's a weird place.
Yeah.
Just looking at like the Jawa, the sandcrawler, and the huge treads they built, like I'm like, what were they thinking? Like, this is nuts that they built this thing for 2 scenes.
Yeah.
The scene where they take R2 and the scene with
at
Owen?
The homestead, yeah. Where it's conveniently blocking the rocks that we now know are just behind them.
Right. Oh, I can't wait to get into this.
Yeah,
I can't wait to get into the whole Obi-Wan of it all. But it's just kind of astounding that I really can't believe this movie got made.
It's the sort of thing that you'd expect a Howard Hughes, like eccentric millionaire, billionaire, like with fuck you money. Like a James Cameron now can just go, I'm making this thing, I'm doing whatever I want. You can't tell me no because I have all this money. But this is George Lucas, who'd come off of American Graffiti, which was a big success, but still nothing like this.
And Star Wars was so not a thing that the teaser trailer that I posted on our socials says from the director of American Graffiti. Yeah. Like they can be any
it's not a selling point, is it? Like, really, like you don't like. I love American Graffiti.
But that's the only thing they had. Yeah. They're like, okay, we're going to show you some weird space shit. We're going to show you a giant dog and some robots. Just so you know, this is the American Graffiti guy, and you like that. So
yeah, remember that cool mood movie that like you watched and it brought you back to your olden days? Like, yeah, no, this isn't that, but it's the same guy, so give it a shot.
Yeah, but it might have gotten people on board with like,
but that
teaser people who so like Flash Gordon. Yeah.
And that teaser trailer that you posted, it's on our Instagram. I think it probably links over to Twitter as well if you haven't checked it out, or if it's been a while since you watched it. Like it's so compelling because it's an old trailer. It's quite long. It's like 2.5 minutes long, but it gives away no plot. It just tells you like
teaser.
It really is a teaser. Like it shows you cool imagery. It tells you, you know, a farm boy, a princess, a scoundrel, like his dog. Basically, like it's wild. It's very, very cool.
It was here's the name in a gigantic font.
Yeah.
And here's some imagery for you to get used to before summertime rolls around, because you're going to need to get used to it. Interesting fact about that Star Wars logo, or I guess it would be the logo that starts the movie. That was never the logo, and I learned about this at the Industrial Light and Magic panel at Celebration. Is George Lucas needed a font? No one made the logo, and they needed it like the next day.
Oh shit!
So Joe Johnston is like, all right, I'll give it a crack.
Yep.
And he's like, there's the same amount of letters because they always had it side by side, like
Mhm.
in the triangle, that triangle artwork with the silhouette of Luke and
Yep.
this and the moon and the sun. It is always like that. He's like, well, let me stack them. It could be a graphically look more. He whipped it up in like after work.
Amazing.
And that story is in the ILM doc, which we'll
Yeah.
get to in a bit.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks' time.
But I mean, that logo and that font, we use it.
Yeah.
We use
everyone
Star Wars
uses
font.
it. It's ubiquitous. Like everyone uses that for everything. I was in Austin last week, and I was just in a bar, and like they had the "Keep Austin Weird" like slogan, but just in the Star Wars font on a sticker on like the hand dryer in the toilet. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with Star Wars, but it's just you see it and you know what it is now. It's as iconic as like the Golden Arches or the Coca-Cola logo. It's like it's up there. It's
the most probably is it the most recognizable font?
I mean, it's easily the most recognizable film font, I'd say.
Yeah, I feel like, but I feel like
maybe Coca-Cola,
someone,
maybe Coca-Cola.
But we don't see it used in other capacities.
No, I mean it gets parodied and stuff a lot, but like, it's up there. It's top 3 or 4, I'd say. I can't think of many others.
Yeah.
So I made quite a few notes. I was amazed. I was watching this last night. I was like, I'm not going to make many notes. Probably just only things that reference like Obi-Wan or some Tatooine stuff from like Book of Boba Fett or whatever. But like, I thought I would make maybe like 3 or 4 notes, but I got a few pages. I've got a few pages of like things. Yeah. It is too many. We're not getting
Star Wars.
We're not getting to them all. But if anyone ever wants to talk to me about Star Wars, I got some talking points.
We could blast through mine because mine aren't that.
All right, let's do it. I'm sure that they'll cover
the first one for me is C-3PO saying, "What makes you think that there are settlements over there?" Because his memory wasn't wiped. That's why.
Yeah, idiot.
so shit like that, like the sort of not necessarily retcon, but once we start getting gaps filled, like certain lines have different meanings.
There's so many retcons, but it's not in the negative sense of the word. It's retroactive continuity. Like I've got lots in here that I'm like, with just with Obi-Wan alone, I'm like, okay, I can see how that now links to that, or that is that, or that pause there is someone thinking about that moment. Of course, they weren't doing that in '76 when they were filming this, but now you can take that slight pause or slight performance choice and put in story to it, which is great.
There was some also facial movements from Alec Guinness that were very much like Ewan McGregor, and Ewan McGregor must have really studied, because I'm like, this is the same character. Like for me, Alden Ehrenreich is the same character that Harrison Ford plays.
Yeah,
they and I mean, the people who say, how does he look like this now compared to like 10 years ago? Who cares? These performances are amazing. Like we
go back to our comic book analogy. It's a different artist just drawing these pages as opposed to that's it.
But like, Ewan McGregor was the absolute perfect casting.
Absolutely.
For Obi-Wan.
It's incredible to think that the guy who, like, a couple of years before Phantom Menace was coming out of a toilet in Scotland looking for his junk. It's insane. He's so good. He's so
this
good.
Is the same character. And that was one of the things. I'm like, you keep on making Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan, I'm going to stop thinking about Alec Guinness. Nope, same guy. Totally same guy. You know what? I have a thing with fandom and the whole hello there, it's a trap, this is the way I've spoken, all of that nonsense. Blue milk is so not a thing in this movie.
No,
and I don't know why it's become a thing,
because
it's really strange what becomes a thing.
So people just latch onto stuff.
So now the thing to do when you pop into live chats, which by the way, we should say hi to people.
Yes, we should.
Sarah's here, Rick's here. I like Star Wars too.
Yeah, me too.
Stevie, this spam guy if you want to go be famous. Stevie. Jeremy
Stevie
Kelly's
agrees
here.
with me that she doesn't like Doctor Who, so that's a win for me.
Yeah. Who do I have up here? Jeremy. But so anytime I pop into a chat now, a live chat as live action Star Wars, usually I do that like on George Lucas talk shows so that
Great.
our logo pops up if they decide to showcase our comment. But I've been signing in with hello boyos.
Amazing.
That's how I sign in. Yeah. So it's my counter to the hello there's. Yeah. All the hello there's.
Justice
so I counter with the hello boyos. Yeah, exactly. But the blue milk, I was so surprised. And it might have been the version I was looking at, but the colors were so washed out.
It is washed out. The blue, like, it's where it's in like the white cup sort of thing as well. Like, okay, it's blue, but it's not like a rich, deep blue. It's just like
it's become this weird legendary thing, and I'm glad I can get it. I'm glad I could get it at Galaxy's Edge, but
yeah, it's an in-universe thing. Like that's what Galaxy's Edge should be for.
Yeah, but they also have other drinks, which is great.
Yeah,
but it's it cracked me up. I was like looking at the blue milk. I'm like, it's so not a thing. Yeah. How come the soup or whatever they're eating isn't a thing? I guess we don't see it.
Well, and also like you can't easily name it blue milk, you know.
Yeah.
But
it just cracked me up. I was like, why is this a thing?
So I don't know if you've ever noticed it. I think I may have mentioned it once before. You were watching a non-special edition of it. The time might not be exactly the same, but one thing that I noticed in the Disney Plus version is something that I'd always noticed for the last, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years or something. There was like a ghost Luke. They'd used a frame of...
I forgot to look for it.
Yeah. They used a frame when just before you hear Uncle Owen doing his Luke calls. There's a like a looking down into the homestead like hole, and just on the right hand side there's a doorway, like an archway, and it was obviously a frame where originally like Luke was coming out of that and down those steps. Yeah. But they'd taken it and like Luke isn't in that scene, but that was the shot that they were using. Now it's clear to me, because I'm used to seeing like a faint ghosty Luke in there, that it's now just black, pitch black, where they've just gone and like just marked over it almost like to get rid of it. But yeah, I assume that in the copy that you were watching, he's still there. Because I mean, even up to a couple of years ago, before like the McClunky changes, it was still there. It was like it was very visible to me. But it was at 27 minutes and 13 seconds. If anyone is interested in going back, I don't think that there'd be anything before that special editions have bumped it. But that's the shot. It's easy to find. So yeah, let me know. Let me know what versions it's still there, it's still visible in people.
We could still have like the dewbacks. We could have the longer shot of like the pan down in the canyon. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but there could be some things. But I know we all know the shot you're talking about. Yeah, we can go find it.
It'd be around the 27-minute mark.
It was fun watching the despecialized version because you get sort of the Vaseline under the lens of the land speeder. Mos Eisley, I liked way more in this version. Yeah. It's so less populated. There's less ships. There's no ships in the sky.
No.
You get a couple of just people walking around. It feels like a real small town. Which I like because it has the impact, the cantina impact of seeing all the weird things.
Is that
has a much greater impact? Yeah, and you're not just like you're not introduced to Mos Eisley as this big crazy place with giant dinosaurs and Jawas and
big massive ships crashed out of it. Yeah,
and robots hitting other robots, and it's this big crazy bustling thing, and you're like, oh, this is nuts. There's a lot of crazy things here. And then you get into the canteen, you're like, oh, here there's just more crazy things. Yeah. And there's a couple of people walking around, and it's a couple of droids, and then stormtroopers. Yeah, and then you go into the canteen, you're like, oh shit, this place is like literally a hive of like weird creatures.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
you said there's no ships in the sky. Better. There's no ships in the sky. And on the like the canyon shot where they're looking out over Mos Eisley, it's the Mos Eisley spaceport. You'll never find them or wretched high.
Painting.
There's nothing in the sky there?
No, it's just a
Yeah,
matte
okay.
painting.
See,
Yeah,
I don't
like
mind
it that way.
those shots, like with the stuff going up there. I got a note of like some of the special edition changes, and for Mos Eisley, I'm just like in general, I think I preferred it shorter and tighter, like without all the craziness. There's a few
Yeah.
things in there that are fine and I'm okay with, but in general, it's just like it's too much, too busy, and I think
Because it
it would
feels like
have.
what Mos Pelgo feels like now.
Yeah,
In
yeah. Which is fine. I mean, okay, it's meant to be a spaceport, so it should be bigger than what we think Anchorhead is going to be.
yeah,
But it's not. If they're making Mos Espa like the capital, which as of Book of Boba Fett, it certainly seems like it, then it would still fit that like Mos Eisley is just this little outskirts spaceport town.
yeah.
Like Mos Espa can be the capital. It can be where like more things are happening. There are big buildings and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
this is just a
there's
space.
like LAX, there's like
Yeah,
LAX, but then there's also like Ontario or John Wayne Airport, where it's like
yeah.
I can show up there like 10 minutes before and get on my flight. You know,
Yeah.
like that's what I like Mos Eisley to be. Mos Espa is great, and I feel like that should be Mos Espa at the end of the special edition of Return of the Jedi, where it's like
Mm,
super dense and populated. That's fine,
mm-hmm.
but Mos Eisley I like is just like the very outskirts, the very like
That your analogy there of
there's a
like,
couple of
yeah,
spaceports or there's a couple of docking bays, but yeah, not a lot.
yeah, yeah. I
Because
like it. I like
I
that
don't think
difference.
there would actually be 94 docking bays in Mos Eisley.
No, I never took it to be that there was that many. Like, I just thought it was just almost arbitrary numbers assigned
Like
to docking bays.
I feel like maybe
Zon
there's
Street 994 or whatever. Like, yeah,
there should be like there could be like 40 docking bays in Mos Espa.
yeah,
So they got hold it's like it's like zip codes. They
yeah.
got 1 through 50, and then
Which
like
makes sense if like you're
we're
talking,
so out there,
yeah,
we're at docking bay 94.
yeah. And then like there might be like a small town that has one, and it's just like, oh
Yeah.
man, I've got to go out to like 76. Oh, it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, but it's just where you're getting assigned to land, sort of thing. If you're
Yeah.
treating it like a gate at an airport, then definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
There are some special edition changes that I really like in this film, though. That's
The
not one of them.
Vaseline.
I mean, I'm fine with it either way, to be honest.
Cleaning up effects is one thing.
Yeah,
Creating
and
new ones is different.
the color correction and the color tweaks that he made on like as you're going down into the canyon with R2. We mentioned that shot earlier on, and like R2 going through in the Jawa attack. Love that color. It's so vibrant. It looks lush. Is like I think the best way that I can describe it. It's really nice, and there's a few tweaks and like yeah, it's the color correction stuff that I thought.
Yeah, the sky
really
extension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't mind the sky extension on that. I don't care for the door extension in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because like there is that
It's
sort of
weird,
push in,
weird
yeah.
zoom.
Yeah, it's the zoom that throws me on that.
Yeah, it looks too unnatural.
Yeah,
because that's what I like about the original trilogy. Not a lot of camera moves. All the fast paced motion stuff is through editing.
Yeah,
it's quick cuts.
Yeah,
because I love me a static shot. I really do. I really do. As much as I like The Force Awakens, like I sometimes I feel like JJ, you don't need a steady cam running through this hallway and spinning around.
There are some moments that I think it really works. Like I love the long shot on Takodana. That's one hell of a pilot shot as Poe's coming in and saves the day. I love that shot so much.
That's good. Bryce Dallas Howard's Mandalorian season 2 episode has a lot of static shots of stormtroopers firing down hallways.
Yes, the one with Bo-Katan, like that.
Yeah,
that episode. Yeah, I love that episode. It's my favorite episode of that show.
Just her episodes to me feel the most Star Warsy.
What about the Obi-Wan Kenobi exterior establishing shot? Because that's just a static shot of it, and I like it because it looks like one of those matte paintings. Again,
I think it probably is a matte painting.
I mean, maybe it might be a digital thing. It looks there's some elements of it that look a little bit like CG-ish, but like it's just like it's a single frame thing. It's like I quite like that, and it sets up like where you are. It's like we're not back at Luke's house. Like we are at a different location. This is Obi-Wan's place.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. Changing English to Arabesh on the Death Star
Yeah.
generator, fine, great, it fits.
Yeah.
It's you've made your own alphabet in later movies. Use it.
Nobody knows. Nobody cares.
No. I remember the first time I noticed it, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay, they have changed that. That's cool."
Yeah, because it said tractor beam in big old letters. Yeah.
The Red Leader scene at the end, like in the docking bay when he's talking to Biggs, which is like reinserted and then weirdly edited, because in the original cut of it he talks about
his
seeing
dad.
Anakin and stuff like that. Like, but then you just now have a trooper walk through the frame and there's a subtle cut in there. I kind of like it. I think it's nice. It adds a little bit of more depth to like Biggs and Luke, which I like. So yeah, it makes all the stuff with Biggs during the actual Death Star battle have a bit more weight, I think, by having a.
Well, here's the thing: is I never knew that Luke was talking about that same guy.
Yeah. You hear
almost
when Biggs and Tank left, but you don't really put 2 and 2 together. Right,
and the thing is, with that scene out, which is the version I saw, it probably would have been better to have a Biggs and Luke scene prior to the briefing and had them sitting together at the briefing.
Yeah. I think in comic books they've done it a few times that like Biggs is in the front or second row because he's one of the more senior pilots that are left. So he's up front, and like when Luke chimes in, he's like, "Hang on, wait a second, I recognize that voice." But he doesn't catch up to him until they're in the hangar.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things that like it would all make more sense if the big scene from the beginning, the one at Tashi Station, if that was still in there.
Yeah, for me watching this version without any of the big scenes, those scenes still live in my brain. So I like, even when I watched the special edition with Biggs in it, that other scene still lives under my brain where I'm like, I understand this conversation.
Yeah.
Because
I know their history together.
That's the closest I'll get to like reading EU is watching a deleted big scene.
But I mean,
like,
I
know that guy.
That's prime EU though. Like that is what the EU always did so well, was fill in those little gaps. Like you hear about Biggs and Tank, and then okay, here's some stories about Biggs, and then later on we did get Tank story. But also like Cammy and Fixer are now canon. We've seen them in Book of Boba Fett. And watching this, I couldn't help but think about them when he's talking about Tashi Station and stuff. And I'm like, hang on. So Cammy and Fixer are still there post Return of the Jedi. The book that I'm reading at the moment, The Shadows of the Sith, is set post Return of the Jedi, post like Mandalorian and stuff actually as well. So Cammy and Fixer are there. Luke is pretty famous at this point. Do you think they've heard about Luke, and what do they think about Wormy being like this famous Jedi guy?
I don't know.
Do you think they could try and capitalize it on a small level? Do you think they're like, oh, we know that guy, he's our friend, don't mess with us because that Jedi, he's our mate.
They didn't do that in Book of Boba
Fett. I think those might be a little bit too soon, because Luke, we know he hasn't even got his like school up and running yet.
Yeah, word hasn't gone around yet. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what they would.
I'd like to think that
it's one of those tough things where in Star Wars it's hard to know what the galaxy knows and what they don't.
Yeah,
like whether they don't know about Darth Vader by, Star Wars. The Jedi clearly are like long forgotten by Rogue One. So it's like, what does the galaxy know and what do they not know?
The Jedi
by this point they don't know about the Death Star.
No.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with the Jedi. At no point does Luke claim ignorance of what a Jedi is.
Right.
He may have heard of Jedi. He doesn't know what the Force is. He's not seen a lightsaber. Those things are true. But when Obi-Wan says, like, I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father. Like, there's no, like, what's a Jedi? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, he may well have heard the term Jedi, and it's almost as if they're just like...
He might just be so obsessed with his dad that he doesn't even care what the word Jedi means.
Maybe.
Because Uncle Owen says to him, he asked Uncle Owen about Obi-Wan, And he's like, "Oh, he died around the same time as your father."
He knew
And
my
the
father.
first words out of his mouth is, he knew my father."
Yeah.
He didn't say that. He just said he died at the same time.
Yeah,
Like,
right. He could have been.
told
Yeah.
Stevie, I said, lots of people die at the same time that don't
Yeah,
know each
people are
other.
dying all the time, kid.
Yeah. So he's so dad obsessed that maybe he just kind of glossed over the Jedi thing and wanted to talk
Maybe,
about his
but
father.
because we know that, like, what, 10 years earlier than this, there was plenty of people running around who still remembered the Jedi. Like,
Yeah.
and it makes me think that they're not as forgotten about as we have been assuming for all this time. Like, people could have been talking about Jedi, like, but it's a case of they're talked about in hushed circles because of the trouble that they can bring, or they're talked about in this way that, like, oh yeah, the Jedi. Wait, were they like the Mounties, but they just sort of like they've long forgotten now? I think they betrayed the Republic or something at some point. I don't really remember. They were out there. They were doing something Clone Wars-y stuff, whatever. I think that's probably like the thing. It's not that no one knows what a Jedi is.
Like there's, according to like the prequels, there's got to be thousands of Jedi.
I think it was about 10,000.
But like, how many planets are there in the galaxy?
Exactly.
How many people are in the galaxy? When are you even gonna see a Jedi? Like, what are the chances of seeing a Jedi? So, yeah.
Like,
but then that's the thing, is like, how does word get around that Luke's famous? Because the Death Star got exploded by the rebellion. Like, how do people know about Luke?
I mean, I genuinely think that them blowing up Alderaan was a tactical mistake for the Empire, because that gets told about, and yeah, all right, they can put whatever propaganda spin on it that they want, but shortly thereafter, like, the Death Star gets blown up, and they can again hide that as much as they can. But I think it was a rallying cry. I really do.
But I mean, at the same time, Force Awakens, Rey knows who Luke is, and they both seem to know who Han Solo is. Finn and Rey. So it's like, I don't know how word travels in this galaxy. It's really hard to keep track.
But I think in that time, in the post Return of the Jedi,
like,
they are legends. I mean, Lando's pretty famous. Like, they are these legendary figures. They're the heroes of the rebellion. That at that point, they are the people, like, they are the poster children for the reason that the downfall of the Empire happened.
Right.
That's how I've always thought about it.
I would love to see a post Return of the Jedi thing where you see like Leia taking control of the Senate, and with like Han and Luke by her side,
so
sort of like a HoloNet thing.
She did become a senator again. This is all in Bloodline. Mon Mothma was the chancellor. She was like the first chancellor.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was originally on Chandrila, which is Mon Mothma's home planet. But that's when she decided, like, no, this should be basically a moving capital. We don't have Coruscant as like this one defining thing anymore. Like, the Republic was based on Chandrila, later on Hosnian Prime. It moved around, and yeah, Leia was a strong supporter of Mon Mothma. Obviously, they were close. She was just a senator. I think she was representing like Alderaanian refugees and other refugees, like people, like folks with no nation, essentially. And then it was a rival senator who outed the fact that Darth Vader was her father, and that's what cost her political career. And yeah, that all happens in Bloodline. An amazing book by Claudia Gray. So yeah, check that out. And that is also like not you. Not you. People that want to read Star Wars books.
It's all interesting, and I just need
you need me to tell you about
them. Story time with James.
That's it. That's what I'm here for. But that is also how Ben Solo finds out that Darth Vader is his grandfather. He didn't know before that. He's with Luke at that time on Ossus at the academy, but like, he didn't know prior to this. And Leia does worry about like how he'll take that news of Darth Vader being his grandfather. And we know it doesn't go well.
Right.
Yeah, so I love the idea of Cameo Fixer using Luke post Return of the Jedi, their connection to Luke as like hey, check us out, we're very cool. Other things, what else have you got related to Obi-Wan?
Jeremy Kelly put this up. Alec Guinness is able, just through his tiny pauses and facial expressions, to convey that he has history.
Yeah.
Watching the scene with Princess Leia's hologram made me focus completely on Alec Guinness's performance, and seeing the look on his face, seeing that you can tell that this message is taken very seriously.
Yeah.
You can see that he's like, oh shit, it's hitting.
Shut
the
up,
fan.
kid. This is important.
This is yeah.
Yeah.
So like things like that, it's always been for me since post Empire Strikes Back. The pause and the sort of gulp that he does before telling him about his father and Darth Vader is really telling, almost to the point where I was like, I wonder if George Lucas told Alec Guinness, because it's a really, you can tell he's really not ready to start this conversation.
I think everything from the moment Luke says Obi-Wan Kenobi, he's just like, shit, I wasn't quite ready for this today. I knew it was coming, but not today.
Can I tell you something about that meeting?
Hit me.
The hello there works for me.
Yeah. Because it's to
from Obi-Wan.
Because it's to R2D2. It's not to Luke. Everyone was just like, oh, look, he's doing the same line again. It's like, no, he's not. He's telling it to R2.
But it's a way to convey, like, that whole scene. It feels different now after watching Kenobi.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, they have met before.
Yeah.
And it has been a while. That might have been the only time they spoke to each other. Was in the Obi-Wan Kenobi finale. And hearing the hello there and Luke waking up and seeing clearly it's a different actor, but a different, seeing an older version of that person. It's an audio cue for Luke.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, that's how I was greeted back then. This is the guy. And he's a little bit confused, like, Obi-Wan, oh, okay. Or he says Ben Kenobi? Ben Kenobi. And it's I like that the hello there is sort of what
the bookend.
It's the audio cue.
Yeah.
It's the thing that ties those two scenes together. It's why I don't want a season 2 of Obi-Wan. And if we do, Luke shouldn't be in it at all.
Nope. Keep him away.
I think Joel Edgerton's performance as Owen feels the same.
Yeah.
Even Aunt Beru feels like the same character.
Yeah, those looks at the table, like you've always been able to get readings off of them, but those looks when Luke starts talking about stuff and she like looks up at Owen, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to go and make sure those guns have still got some shots in them.
With as little scenes as there are with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, like I guarantee you the actors studied those to make sure, and the writing staff for Obi-Wan Kenobi studied those to make sure everything they were doing fit their characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's nice is watching Obi-Wan, the series, and then coming into this, everything seems to mesh up pretty perfectly. And I like that they looked at the performances and were able to be like, we're going to put this in the story with Obi-Wan and young Princess Leia. Let's keep going back and looking at Star Wars to make sure that everything still feels right.
Yeah.
And it completely does. It's the reason why I wanted to do this episode next. I felt like this would have been great for an anniversary show or some sort of an anniversary for us, for Star Wars, for anything. But I'm like, I really, through this new lens of the Obi-Wan series, I really wanted to take a look at this.
Because it's the next episode, essentially. Like, so far with what we've got, like it's just the next chapter. Like, there's a few things. There's loads. I've got loads of little bits.
But what's great about it too is also in my brain, R2D2 and C3PO coming into this movie from the prequels. And it's like, oh, it's good to see these guys again. It's like, oh, awesome. And then you get Han Solo and you're like, it's the guy from Solo. Like,
You got
and
the
it's
Death
Leia
Star and all
from
the everything like with the Death Star and the Rebels. It's like, oh, it's those guys
it's
from that.
it's everything converging onto this one film. And I know I say that I hate that. I know I want to move past everything and stop getting into this era of Star Wars, but
This film.
with the prequels and the Disney stuff, like the Disney prequels like Rogue One and Solo and Kenobi, and it's amazing how none of that stuff doesn't feel out of place.
No, it all
I
just
think the
it
only thing
converges. It all just converges here, sort of thing.
the only thing that I feel like is sort of off is Uncle Owen say that he died around the same time as your father, like just flat out lying.
But again, that fits to me because he's gonna do anything he can to keep his kid there to protect him.
But he met Obi-Wan Kenobi after his father was dead, and he was with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, so that makes zero sense.
He met Ben Kenobi. He met Ben Kenobi, and like, I don't know. Luke met Ben, not Obi-Wan.
That's right.
There's a shot with Uncle Owen that
right.
I was fascinating to me. Is when R5's motivator blows and Luke convinces Owen to get R2. As R2's rolling up, so Owen has made no recollection of C-3PO, despite the fact that he lived with him for 10 years, or close to it, maybe. When they're talking, but he's gold now, and he has no recollection because he's had his memory erased. But when R2 rolls up besides 3PO, and he's like, "Come along, R2," there's a shot, like he's only in the background, but he's looking. He's got his hands on his hips, and he's just looking at those two droids and Luke, and it's like, is he going? Hang on a second. That shot there, that looks familiar. That looks like that time another kid, his dad, came to my house and had these two droids left with him. Like that was my droid for a little while there. Like,
and then all of a sudden Luke's talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's like, oh shit.
And that's why he's so insistent on getting those droids memory erased.
Yeah.
He's like, he better get those like two droids memories erased and up at the fields, because like I don't really want them hanging around talking to my kid in case they remember something.
And then you have the scene with Owen and Beru on their own talking about like, oh shit, like this conversation that they're having at the dinner table feels way different now after seeing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, because it feels more like that. It's like, oh shit, that world's seeping in. And they've had those conversations that we've seen now.
They know that eventually he is probably going to go off and train with Obi-Wan.
And Aunt Beru is like, hey, he's going to do it. It's going to happen.
Yeah. But Owen is just looking out for his kid, and it's heartbreaking, really. And to now, like, seeing them all burnt up and seeing how wrecked the homestead is like, I've always enjoyed Troops, the movie, the fan film, where like it's, well, I mean, we're going to cover it at some point down the line, but it's a fun thing, and like you see why they're so burnt up and so like destroyed there in that. But in this, where we see that they will defend that kid, they will defend their home like tooth and nail, and now seeing how wrecked those stormtroopers left them, they didn't just kill them and leave, like they destroyed, because Owen and Beru fought back. Like there is no doubt in my mind that those stormtroopers got there, they questioned them, and then I don't know, maybe Beru did pull a gun, because she seems like she would defend, and Owen would have been right there with her, and like, so them getting destroyed like that, just it makes more sense now, and it's heartbreaking because all they wanted to do was protect their kid.
Yeah. I think as far as this movie goes with the Obi-Wan series, I think it fits. I have no complaints, honestly. Nope.
And then we've got Obi-Wan does remember R2. I'm sure of it. Like he says hello there, he's talking, and I think it's almost R2's hesitance to come out of that cave. He's like, hang on, it's been a while since I've seen him. Is that Obi-Wan? Is that my friend? Because they were friends, but it's been 20 years for him since he's seen him.
Yeah.
So I think there's some hesitance with R2, but then he's in and he's like, nope, I'm ready to show you this message because you're who I'm looking for. I believe that it's you. Basically, as soon as he whips out the lightsaber and stuff, he's ready to go. And then Obi-Wan at that point, as soon as Luke says Obi-Wan Kenobi, he takes a step back and he sits back down. He's like, okay, here we go. It's on. Like the Force has probably been telling me. Yeah, he's been waiting, but you can be waiting and preparing as much as you want, but it's still going to hit when that moment arrives, because he knows that basically his end is in sight at this point, I think.
Right. Speaking of which,
yeah,
I'm assuming Vader keeps that lightsaber.
The Obi-Wan lightsaber, he's got to. Yeah, he's got to. That is a prized possession. And
it closely resembles this guy, which we've talked about. So when he's holding it in Return of the Jedi,
he's thinking
he's
of
been staring at Obi-Wan so long. That's why he starts thinking of Obi-Wan.
Definitely. The Vader of it all, because we're running out of time here, but like the Vader of it all. So we've seen Vader in Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've seen Vader in Rogue One. We know that he's not a mystery to the galaxy. Like he's obviously a part of the Empire, but with the disrespect that he's shown in this and how selectively he's used in things prior to this, it really, to me, feels like, and the fact that like we only really ever see him connected to Fortress Vader or like Castle Vader or whatever. He's always based out of there. He's got the Devastator. He's on his Star Destroyer where he's got his crew who know who he is. But until he gets to the Death Star here, it's almost like the other Imperial officers know who he is, but they don't respect him because he's just the Emperor's pet. He's the assassin. He's that weird cult guy that the Emperor likes to keep around. They are the ones who are running shit. Like, not him. He has no authority. Tarkin knows who he is. They're cool. But, like, it's so different. And the different levels of respect. Like, and I think, do we see any other Imperial officers in black other than the ones on the Devastator?
I don't think so.
I don't think we do. Like, I was trying to think about it because I was like, I never bat an eyelid at it. But then when you see them at the beginning, it's like, that's almost like his officers, his crew.
Yeah, like the Death Troopers.
Like the Death Troopers or different factions for like different people. Like the ISB in their white suits and things like that. Like, and so if they're just his guys, it makes sense that they're all going to be decked out in black because he's a moody goth. But he's there, and then when he gets to the Death Star, like people start disrespecting him. He chokes them out, and it's only post this movie that he's given the flagship of the Imperial fleet. He is now like fully in command, and everyone answers to him.
Yeah.
But I feel like for 20 years he's just been the Emperor's pet assassin guy, and I love that. I think it's a really good, different development that feels more natural now that we've seen stuff leading up to it.
Okay, I'm going to since we're running low on time, this is what I'm going to do. I just thought of this now.
All right.
It's going to be a little bit different than what we do on live action Star Wars.
Ooh.
I am changing the title of this episode.
What?
I'm going to do it something to the effect of Star Wars post Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Cool.
Which is pretty much all we've talked about. We have not really talked about Star Wars the movie that much because we have Obi-Wan Kenobi on the mind. So this will not be our Star Wars episode.
Cool.
And I will leave it up to James to decide to pick when we cover Star Wars. And we'll do it like you can pick whenever you want, but we'll do it up with guests and everything.
Yeah. I think that's great. We can go long. We'll do it on, I'm going to decide when we do it, and I'll make sure that it's the day that I don't have to rush off to work, because we can talk about this movie for hours.
Right. And this, I believe, this feels more like our Book of Boba Fett recap, season 1 recap, and then we did that for our Invincible show. We did a season 1 recap. So I was like, "This, you got to get going to work in about 5 minutes," and I'm like,
I can talk. I can talk for another.
I just don't want to start talking about Han Solo and the Death Star and
the fact that that's the first time we've talked about Han Solo. Yeah, there's so much. There's so much more that I could talk about.
Also, this is the point where I would say, James, what's your pick? But we got something coming up, and it starts next week.
Is it next week? I thought we had 2 weeks.
Oh, we do have 2 weeks. Oh, you do get a pick. Do you want to do pick or do you want to do Data Leak?
No, I want to do a pick.
Okay.
I've got something. I've had it in mind since the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's okay. Don't worry about being late. And yeah, so I've got a pick, and I think it's a lovely bridge between this movie and what we're doing in 2 weeks' time when the ILM, the Light and Magic series starts. We're gonna do next week Elstree 1976.
Perfect.
It's available on Prime in the UK. I don't know where it is for you guys. I assume that it's streaming somewhere, hopefully Prime or wherever.
Yeah, I'll find it.
You'll find
I've seen it before.
Awesome. I haven't.
Okay.
I've been saving it because it came out like before we started the show, but I was like, I feel like this is something I'll talk about on a podcast someday. So I've saved it.
Okay. So that'll be next Wednesday. We are covering Light and Magic.
Yeah.
I went to the panel. I saw some footage. It's going to be amazing.
Can't
I'm
wait.
like, we're covering that on a show. When we do start covering that, I think we may shift to Thursdays.
Okay.
Because I don't think I could wake up at 5:30 in the morning.
No.
To watch this, but if we could stick to our 7:30 still on Thursdays. Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, it should be fine. I've got one of those Thursdays. I'm not sure exactly which one. I'm going to be at a festival. I'll be around on the Wednesday, but not on the Thursday. So there might be 1 week where we still do the Wednesday.
Where I jump in and watch it. Because the thing is with this, I don't know if they're all dropping at once. I don't know if they're being dropped weekly. If they are being dropped weekly, there's a week overlap between this and Andor, which I think is strange. So maybe they'll release the first 2 on the first day.
Possibly.
Like they did with, I have no idea. I have no idea how this is going to work.
No idea.
If they release them all at once.
Normally their documentary stuff they release all at once, but it sounded like from all the press material, it sounded like they're releasing weekly.
Right. And if they release them all at once, we can do them on Wednesdays, weekly.
Oh, or Thursdays or whenever. Like
yeah. Because I can watch them ahead of time. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Best thing to do is to head over to liveactionstarwars.com and hit the bell icon. That'll notify you when we have new episodes coming up, and do that. Hit that bell icon because you never know when I'll drop a lightsaber review. That thing, you were on vacation or on holiday for a couple weeks.
Vacation's fine.
We did a intro episode.
We updated our intro. Yeah,
we updated that. And that kind of served as an episode for 1 week, which was no new information. And then I was going to do a show, but I'm like, I don't know. I've been sort of busy doing some other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I could do a lightsaber review. And I think it turned out really well.
Awesome. I've got a bonus episode coming up as soon as I finished Shadows of the Sith with Adam Frazier, where we're going to just sit down and have a chat about that book.
That'll be fun.
But yeah, that should be in a week or 2. I'm about 60-70% through that book. So yeah,
right.
Getting there.
And this is the end of an era. This cup is going away.
Oh no!
It's from a petrol station. We
call
them gas stations over here. It was for convenience, and it's just not a good cup. And I ordered a new one yesterday. But the sad thing is, this Earth to Kentucky.
Yeah,
our friend Dustin and his family, Oscar, Polly, and Mabel, have this shop called Earth to Kentucky, and I don't have another one of these stickers for my new one. So everyone go visit them now, and then next week you'll see what my new cup looks like.
End of an era.
It's this cheap plastic, and it gets kind of gross inside. I don't know. I've had it for over a year, but I'm so like, this has been in like every podcast that we've done almost, and it's going away. It's going away.
Rest in peace, cup.
Rest in peace, cup. You did great, and everybody go to Earth to Kentucky. It's a great shop.
His next cup is going to be a speeder.
It's gonna. Yeah. Oh shit. Now you got me thinking. I just had to say cup.
you think on the joke. You think on that joke and come back to it later. All right, guys. Oh, I know you got it.
You can go to merch.liveactionstarwars.com and get a shirt, one of those Helvetica shirts. They say cup, speeder, ship, cup, speeder, ship, or whatever it is.
Cup, speeder, ship, speeder. I don't know. Whatever the order is, my mind is wiped.
I need to get that. All right.
And then also coming soon, merch in the UK and Europe for better shipping prices.
Oh, thanks for reminding me. That was your reminder for me to get you that artwork. Sarah, I already got it. I got myself a hydro flask thing that I can keep my cold stuff cold. I just need to find stickers.
Yeah.
All
right, guys.
All right.
Until next week, Elstree 1976. Go watch it and come back next Wednesday at 7:30 West
Pacific
Coast, 3:30 p.m. UK. But until then, it's been a while. What's my line? Don't give in to hate.
Shirt. Celebrate the love.
Punch it.